And
Mhm.
I guess the last thing I would say is, to any of the students or the younger generations who are watching, don't give up.
Yeah.
There's always a way. If you set your goals and you're determined, you can accomplish it with hard work.
Yeah.
The tiny things, I think for me, I'm very lucky that I found mentorship along the way,
Mhm.
but mentorship of amazing, kind-hearted individuals, but also amazing and very smart individuals who guided me along the way, and
Yeah.
have been there all along. I still keep in contact with all of these different people,
Wow.
because if it weren't for them, I don't think I would be where I am now.
Welcome. Welcome back to the STEM the Gap podcast, where we bridge the gap between the majority and the minority through productive and insightful conversations. We're continuing our series of bringing on minority voices to give insight into their involvement in STEM and how other young people can get involved. And today we have another special guest, Dr. Karina Gonzalez Herrera, the Associate Dean of Collaborative Excellence in the Yale School of Medicine. To start, Dr. Gonzalez, could you just briefly introduce yourself?
Hi, yes, good afternoon, Gavin. Thank you so much for inviting me to be here with you today, to do this interview. Happy to start by telling you a little bit about myself, and hopefully we can have this as an interactive conversation. So feel free to jump
Mhm.
in and interrupt as we go along.
Sure.
So my name is Karina Gonzalez Herrera. I use she, her pronouns, and I serve as the Associate Dean of Collaborative Excellence at Yale School of Medicine. And in my role, I'm really lucky and privileged to have the opportunity to work closely with amazing colleagues here at the School of Medicine, but also throughout the university, with the goal of supporting everyone in our community. And I would say that a large part of my focus is supporting our PhD students in the biological and biomedical sciences PhD program, as well
Mhm.
as working closely with members of our office to support all faculty, students, and staff here at Yale School of Medicine.
Yeah, that's great.
I myself, I'm trained as a scientist, and I also got my
Mhm.
PhD in biological biomedical sciences back in 2016.
Mhm.
I'm a first generation Latina, so I'm the first in my family to have pursued a college education, and also the one and only so far, to have pursued a PhD. But hopefully others will follow.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah, that's the goal to have future generations come after you for sure. Yes, thank you so much for introducing yourself. I just want to usually the way we go through this is have you go through your background, the way you grew up. I know you had a tumultuous upbringing coming from Guatemala. Could you just give us some insight into your background as an immigrant and your journey through into the U.S. and into higher education?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for reading a little bit about me and my background. So I came to
Hmm.
the United States at the age of 11. And when I first moved out here, it was my parents, and my two brothers and myself. And they
Hmm.
brought us here for multiple reasons. One, they wanted a better way of life, but also they were running away from death threats in Guatemala.
Wow.
And so they came, I'm very lucky that, we came
Yeah.
here. I only realized that when we were actually going through the whole immigration process and the interview. I really learned the whole background of what happened. I hadn't questioned it. I guess I just went along and did what my parents thought was best. But
Right.
um, we were fortunate enough to have my aunt who took us in, and so we lived in one room for a few years, the five of us.
Hmm.
And then eventually, my parents were able to, make enough money to be able to rent an apartment, and so we moved out and had our own space. The one thing I would say that was something I thought a lot about when I was earlier and when we first got to the States is I noticed how hard my parents would work to try to
Hmm.
make ends meet. And by saying that, as an immigrant, my dad didn't have a lot of options. And so he
Right.
was working in landscaping, which didn't make a lot. And my mom was pretty much taking care of us at home and trying to do everything at home. And so he was the only one supporting a family of five. And I always thought, I have to do whatever it takes to be able to give back and support. They made a sacrifice coming here, and I got to do my best so I can help them whenever I can. And so, one day I asked my parents, I said, what can I do to help? And they said, just focus on your school. Education is the way out of our situation, is what they said. And so I just
Hmm.
focused on trying to learn English. I didn't speak English when I came here, but slowly and over time, I learned. initially by taking words from children's books that I would then use a dictionary or a translator. My mom got enough money to buy a translator, and so we would use this translator. I had flashcards, and I would just memorize what they were. And so
Mm.
initially, a lot of the learning was more reading and deciphering what I read, and then slowly over time, I picked up on the sounds and how to pronounce, etc. And so
Right.
I would say I focused a lot on my education, and the effort really paid off when I was in middle school. I had
Mm.
two middle school teachers, my math and my science teacher, who approached me after school and said, "You're doing really well in your classes. You're quickly moving through the English levels. You're mastering the levels very quickly. What do you want to do when you grow up?" And I said, "Well, my parents keep saying education is the way out of a situation. And so whatever is next." And they said, "Okay, college." I said, "Yeah, I think I just need to figure out what I need to do that." And so they
Right.
said, "Okay, we're going to nominate you for this program. It's the AVID program, Advancement via Individual Determination. The program prepares students to go on to college."
Mm.
And they nominated me to participate, asked my parents to meet with them, and I signed up for this program. It was also them who asked me about my immigration status. They asked me if I had a green card. I
Right.
didn't know what a green card was until I got home, and my mom was really terrified because
Mm.
typically we don't want to disclose that we're undocumented
Yeah,
because
that
we
must have
fear
been hard.
if people will
Yeah.
call immigration. And so I think they understood quickly that my teachers meant really well. And, I'm still in contact with those teachers from back then. And,
Mm.
I'm very fortunate and very lucky that they supported me. From then, I went on to, I did really well in middle school, did really well in high school. And that's when I realized that my passion was in science. So I love
Mm.
math and I loved science. Initially, my biology teacher in ninth grade said, "Oh, you're going to be a great doctor, like a medical doctor." He himself had
Right.
been a doctor. And I said, "Okay, that sounds great. I like science, so I could see myself doing that." And then in 10th grade, I took chemistry, and I loved chemistry. I still do. We just posted a periodic table of elements at home for my kids in the dining room. And so I was very happy to see that. Um, and so I thought maybe I want to be a chemistry teacher when I grow up. And
Mm.
then in 11th grade, because I was an avid, they always pushed us to take honors and advanced placement classes, which honestly, that was a blessing. And so
Yeah.
I looked at genetics. It was an honors class, and it was Mr. John Patrick Mongoven who was teaching this. This was at San Marcos High School in San
Mm.
Marcos, California. And um, I fell in love with genetics and learning about the things that I couldn't see with the naked eye, about DNA and recombinant proteins and all
Mm.
of that stuff. I love that stuff. And so I took that in ninth grade. And then he also taught honors biotechnology, which was you could only take if you had taken genetics. And so I signed up for that for my senior year. And I would also come and talk to him after school because I had read this book about cloning, and
Mm.
it seemed fascinating. And so I would
Yeah.
come talk to him about how that happened. He would tell me about Dolly the sheep and the limitations with cloning. And I think he realized I really, really like science. And he connected me to two professors at California State University, San Marcos, which was just down the street from the high school, but
Right.
also from where I lived. And they were running a program to prepare students interested in pursuing careers in science, specifically PhD, a
Mm.
doctorate in philosophy, but in the sciences. And if you participate in the program, they will guide you and provide you the mentorship and opportunities to go on to pursue a PhD. And he
Uh-huh.
told them that they should convince me to come to the school and they should take me to the program. Now I was blushing because I was very shy. I was like, "Oh my goodness, he's telling these people I'm amazing, and I
Yeah.
don't know that I can I can fulfill that." I guess I had a little bit of the imposter phenomena at the time,
Right.
but he convinced them, and lucky for me as well because I was still undocumented at the time,
Mm.
and I I was afraid to go further away, and also it would have been more difficult for me to go anywhere further away because, again, I
Mhm.
could not apply for financial aid like the FAFSA that people apply for because I was not a resident. I wasn't
Mhm.
documented, and we didn't have the means. My parents said, if you go to college, it's pretty much going to be just you figuring out how to pay for this. So I had applied for a lot of scholarships, but I wasn't, I didn't have enough to go elsewhere
Mhm.
and to pay for room and board and everything else. So I lived at home and
Right.
commuted to school down the street where I got the best education at Cal State San Marcos, California State University
Oh,
San Marcos. I did my bachelor's and my master's there. Towards the end of
mm,
my undergrad, I was on deportation proceedings, and so I was fortunate enough to find a lawyer who was willing
yeah.
to help me and support me because it was challenging, Gavin. Like I
Yeah.
would call
I can
people and
imagine.
people would tell me, we'll charge you like five, 10,000, $15,000 for you to sign your voluntary departure. And I'm thinking, I understand what that means. I'm not going to pay you for me to
Yeah.
just go sign a paper. I can read the paper and sign it myself. And also, that's not what I'm looking for. And so,
Mm.
the response they would give me is, well, it's your fault for coming here illegally. And I'm thinking, I was 11. I didn't even know. But
Yeah.
that's a whole
Yeah.
other story. Um, so I got lucky enough. I found I found someone willing to help me, and also I had been working in a laboratory since I started
Right.
there at Cal State San Marcos, and
Mm.
my research advisor, he said, I'll come with you and talk to this lawyer. Like, I want to be of support. And so he did. And so it's the tiny things. I think for me, I'm very lucky that I found mentorship along the way,
Mhm.
but mentorship of amazing, kind hearted individuals, but also amazing and very smart individuals who guided me along the way and
Yeah.
have been there all along. I still keep in contact with all of these different people
Wow.
because if it weren't for them, I don't think I would be where I am now.
Yeah. Yeah, I know on this podcast, a lot of people have, they've talked about the importance of their mentors, right? And how they've gotten them to where they are. And to hear that you're still in contact with all these people, it clearly they mean a lot to you, right? And they've,
They do.
had a big influence on you. So that's just amazing to hear. And in your journey to get a PhD and where you are now, I'm sure it definitely helped a lot to have those people just behind you, all the way through.
Yeah. It did. It did. It really did. And I'm grateful. I stand on the shoulders of giants, and they are the giants. If it hadn't been for them, I don't know that I would have known, right? I didn't even know what I had to do to go to college other than just get good grades. But that's not all. Honestly, that's not all. It's not
Yeah,
just about getting the grades. Like even if I got the grades, um, in high school, even if I got the grades in undergrad, it's a whole different it's a process, and there is an approach and a
right,
strategy to it that if you don't have people who have gone through that process or who have the knowledge, it's really difficult
right.
to get there. And I should say, I'm also very privileged of the fact that my parents were supportive. I had
Mm,
also some of my peers who didn't have that kind of support. And so there are so many different components as to what dictates whether a person will be successful or not. But, there are
right.
many different obstacles and challenges to overcome.
Mm, yeah. Yeah, for sure. And yeah, that's overcoming the challenges I think was definitely, as you were saying, a big part of how you've gotten to where you are today. And just, I kind of want to transition now to what you are doing right now, and the your role as the Associate Dean of Collaborative Excellence. Could you go into a little bit more detail on, what exactly you do to support and, develop students and particularly those in, maybe underrepresented backgrounds in STEM and, how you're able to do that.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, after completing my master's, I went on to pursue a PhD. And what I would say is I use a lot of the experiences that I had as a graduate student. It wasn't easy in the first year or throughout. And so I learned a lot from that, not only based on my experience, but also based on the experience of my peers, some of whom also struggled. And I use that as the drive for pursuing my current career and for what I have done since 2016. So in my current role and what I have done in the past few years is work closely with faculty, students, and staff at the institution to organize a wide range of initiatives focused on recruitment, retention, and inclusion.
Mm,
And so when it comes to recruitment, coordinating different efforts to attract talented students to come to Yale. And we've talked a little bit about developing awareness as to how to prepare applications, but
mm,
also what you need to do, what kinds of experiences you need to do to be considered a competitive candidate for summer programs, post-bac program, or graduate programs, right?
right,
So that's a little bit about that, whether it's myself going to different places or faculty, students going to different places, or us hosting individuals here on our
right,
campus, seeing what the campus looks like, connecting with people like us. And, I'm at Yale School of Medicine, and I'm also very aware of the fact that, at least from my perspective and others, who I
mhm,
have been close to, like even prior to coming to an Ivy school, right?
right,
There is a certain way of thinking about these places. A lot of people think these places are very competitive, that people are not
mhm,
friendly. And so it's very important for us to make sure that individuals see that that's not the case necessarily. There are friendly
yeah,
people here, and we care about the success of everyone who's here. So that's one of the pieces that we do in terms of recruitment, right?
right,
Um, and then once students are here, hopefully we're attracting them and they're coming to our programs here. Once students are here, it's a lot of different efforts on retention, right? So
mm,
what is it that students need to feel supported, to feel like they belong? What do they need so that they can feel comfortable contributing during class discussions or in the laboratory doing research?
right,
Um, those kinds of pieces, and making sure that they're giving feedback along the way about their experience, not only to administrators like me, but also to faculty, right? And so really
mm,
working closely with the faculty and staff to make sure that there's a welcoming and inclusive, supportive training environment so the students can do their best work, get the
right,
training that they need, right, when it comes to like PhD science research, but then also think about what it is that they want to do next. In the past, uh, when you went into science, many individuals thought that the next step would be following a postdoctoral position and then going on to be a faculty member, a professor, right? Running a
right,
lab in a specific research topic.
right,
And that is one career path. But as
right,
a PhD student, you gain a lot of expertise in a wide range of skills. So, critical reading, critical analysis of the literature,
mhm,
development of experiments, experimental design, right? But then
right,
also oral communication, written communication. And these skills are transferable skills that you can take into additional career paths. And so, making sure that students have the opportunity to explore the careers that they're interested in and also
mhm,
have a good sense as to what they will need to be competitive for those careers. So that's what we're doing in terms of retention. And then inclusion, making sure that everyone's voice is heard, that everybody's voice is valued. And that's, I think, honestly, the best way to harness the benefits of having a diverse community, a diverse diversity of perspectives and experiences, right? I
right,
honestly tell the students when they're coming here to visit during recruitment, right? Like students will be admitted to programs and then they have the opportunity to come and visit the campus. And our goal is, you know, to show them what's here and hopefully if they like it here, that they will come. And when
right,
they come, I have the opportunity to connect with them and, say some brief remarks. And that's what I highlight, right? Everyone
mm,
brings something to this community based on your lived experiences, and we can all
right,
benefit from learning from each other. But that's only if we're willing to speak up and if we feel comfortable speaking up and if we feel heard and valued and respected.
mhm, right. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I know, and I've talked to a lot of people who, they've in their search for a place, a big thing for them is, having that sense of belonging, having that sense of inclusion. And I think, a lot of what you're doing is really great to that, and that's great. That's part of the goal of this podcast as well, is to, make people feel like they have a place in STEM, right? Especially for those who are from, underrepresented communities, or a minority background, right? They can have that place in STEM. And just I want to ask you, like, for those specific students who are from under represented backgrounds and are interested in
Mhm.
STEM, what do you think are, steps or things that maybe they should keep in mind to like focus on right now in order to maybe get to places like Yale to be able to get involved in programs like the ones that you're running, and to, get into those spaces?
That's such a great question, Gavin. And actually, I'm thinking, oh, this is something I wish I had asked myself when I was young. I mean, I guess I got the guidance, so I got lucky in that
Right.
sense. But um, I would say really try to connect with people who you admire, but people who are doing things that are of interest to you, right? Especially in STEM. And this, your podcast, Gavin, as I was saying earlier, I think this is amazing, right? It's a great way to
Yeah.
create awareness and to share information with others.
Hmm.
Um, creating awareness is one thing, but also hopefully individuals will feel comfortable reaching out to those of us who are here. I'm always happy to connect with others, share
Right.
anything I have learned along the way. I'm really passionate. I really love what I do. Um,
Hmm.
and so I'm happy to connect and share information, anything that's helpful. But
Hmm.
connecting with individuals, hearing about what a day to day is like in their shoes, right? I'm also happy to share what it was like when I was a graduate student, right? When I was doing science, that's different from what I do now. Um,
Yeah.
and I would say another key piece is starting to get involved in research experiences. So once you figure out what it is that you're interested in, try to
Hmm.
pursue opportunities, internships that will allow you to get some of the hands on experience in those areas that you're interested in, right? So for
Right.
me, that was research, and I shared with you, I participated in this program. It was NIH funded. The programs, I don't think, you know, the NIH funded programs are no longer in place, but
Mm.
there are opportunities to do research in laboratories. And so I got lucky that I was doing that from very early on as
Yeah.
a first year undergraduate student. And that was very helpful. Now, I
Mm.
have also run summer programs in the past. In my previous role, I used to co direct a summer program, and we would see students as early as high school doing research.
Wow.
So, any opportunities that you have, right, even if it's just
Right.
shadowing early on as a high school student, if your high school is near a institution where there may be laboratories,
Mhm.
that is a great way to start to get exposed.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And I think, yeah, exposure is definitely a big thing. That's something, as someone who's interested in science myself, that I've been trying to do. And, that again, like it's a something that I've been hearing a lot from people in the spaces to, get experience, the importance of getting experience and having that exposure. And this is that's especially important for a lot of minority STEM students. And as we kind of approach the end here, as like kind of like a final question, you know, obviously there is a gap that exists in these fields, right? And we acknowledge that, but there are efforts, right? There's a lot of efforts, there's a lot of awareness, there's a lot of initiatives being done to fix that. Do you feel that STEM is becoming, more accessible in this country, or maybe are there certain aspects that are appearing more accessible? Gives you optimism or concerns you? Could you just go into a little bit on on that just as we end off?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think we are making progress in terms of developing the awareness, like you said, right, Gavin?
Mm.
Um, but at this point in time, there is progress, and there are ways to continue to make progress.
Right.
But right now, I guess a little bit of the concern that I have is I shared with you, the program I participated in that was a very successful program. Without that
Mm.
program, I don't know if I would be here, right? If I had not found the right people, I don't know if I
Right.
would be here.
Right.
I mean, I put in the work, don't get me wrong, but
Yeah.
I needed the guidance. The programs no longer exist.
Mm.
And so that's what I'm trying to think about as you ask me this question. I think we are making progress, but more progress could be made if these
Mm.
programs were in place. The programs that provide the guidance and the support for students to be able to
Right.
pursue these opportunities. The
Right.
program that I'm mentioning to you, that program
Mhm.
also took care of an additional component that we didn't discuss, right? Maybe alluded to a little bit.
Mm.
So that was the finance piece, right? These program
Right.
also provided a stipend to students so they would be working in the laboratory and could
Mm.
get paid. And
Right.
so without that support, and especially others, thinking about the experiences of students, some
Mm.
students need to work, right? And so if
Right.
you need to prioritize work over, research experience, you probably will do that. But if you can get
Right.
both with something, not only are you training the future generations of scientists, but then um, you're also supporting those individuals along
Right.
the way.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of progress being made. I think there's still a lot of potential. There are still ways around it without these programs, but it becomes
Mhm.
a little bit more challenging.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, that's great. Thank you so much for that, piece of insight. And yeah, and I just to add to that as well, I think like as you said, there are programs, there are certain things that have, that have closed off or that don't exist anymore. But I think, for those of you watching, just to, address them, I think that there are programs, right? Just, go out, find them, do your research, again, find doors, find ways that, if you have to work a job, something that can maybe, you can make some money doing as well. There are things like that that exist. Um, and I think that is definitely something that is important. As you said, obviously you have to put in the work. There's a lot of dedication involved. But there are certain things that give you guidance, right? They give you just a platform to build upon. And I know for especially for a lot of minorities, they don't really have that sort of a platform or that sort of foundation that exists. And so I think, that's part of the goal of this podcast. It's what a lot of what you're doing is to be able to provide that awareness and that foundation and that guidance for a lot of people. So I really thank you for what you've been able to offer to us today. And I hope that you and I can yeah. Would you want to add something? Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to add something. So I would say, we talked about the research opportunities, but one of the things
Mm.
that's coming to mind as well, and we talked
Mhm.
about mentorship. I think of it
Yeah.
as a network, but also
Right.
thinking about the importance of communication, right? Like for
Mhm.
me, I think I was fortunate in finding these different individuals who supported me because, well, one, the first time around, my teachers came and asked me directly. But the second time around, it was me, meeting with my genetics and biotechnology teacher. And,
Mhm.
we talked about like, next steps. Eventually we had this trust in this relationship that, I said, this is what I want to do next, like based on what what I'm hearing from my family and what I've heard
Right.
along the way. And he guided me, right? He connected me to people, but it was because I communicated what I was
Mhm.
interested in. So
Mhm.
I think highlighting the importance of communication, sharing what you're thinking about in terms of your next steps. You
Mhm.
never know who will be
Right.
able to give you information about a program, an opportunity, or who may be able to say, to someone else who's
Right.
running a program, hey, I have this amazing student. I think she'd be phenomenal for blah blah blah. Um,
Mhm.
so just thinking about that, and then the importance of mentorship, right?
Right.
You have a lot of individuals around you, but nowadays with the ability to use Zoom, you can reach so many different people. And so
Yeah.
using that as a tool for yourself to connect with others, right? Um, but also thinking about like a support network is no one person who provides everything for any one person, right? It takes
Right.
a village. It's a group of people. And so thinking about that as well as you're
Yeah.
thinking about your next steps.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, thank you so much. It's been really great talking to you, Dr. Gonzalez. Thank you so much for coming on here, being able to. I'm sure many of the people that are watching at home will definitely have a lot to take away from this episode. A lot of the the wisdom that you've been able to give us. Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you again, Gavin, for inviting me. And please feel free to address me as Karina, and I hope we can stay in contact. Happy
Yeah.
to help with anything. Thank you again for your leadership, you and Winston for doing all this great work. And
Hmm.
I guess the last thing I would say is, to any of the students or the younger generations who are watching, don't give up.
Yeah.
There's always a way. If you set your goals and you're determined, you can accomplish it with hard
Yeah.
work.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Yeah. Thank you so much for those of you watching. If you're we have YouTube, Instagram, Spotify. If you're any of those, be sure to like, subscribe, however you're watching. And Dr. Gonzalez, thank you so much. Yeah, really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you,
Right.
Gavin.
Yeah.
All right.